All right. So today I am joined by Kaylee Stroup, and Kaylee is the Kids Ministry Director at City Church in North Carolina. Really excited to chat today, Kaylee.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, could you tell me a bit about yourself? Like, how did what called you into ministry and how did you find your way to City Church?
So that's a good story. I
Awesome.
started attending City Church when it was called Bethlehem, with my family when I was 2 years old.
All right.
So I grew up in the preschool, elementary, and student ministry here, and I began volunteering in Startown Kids, the elementary ministry, in the fifth grade on the worship team.
Hmm.
Um, I was given a role of leadership on that team later on, and I can remember clear as day uh, what I thought was my last day in Startown Kids before I left for college. Um, and a year later, I transferred closer to home and started coming back to City Church each week. And then I was offered a stipend to actually lead the team that
Hmm.
was the worship team. And meanwhile, I was studying biology at
Hmm.
Gardner Webb University, and I was minoring in discipleship. My plan was to go to dental school and find a way to do dental work for God, whether that be like in public health or maybe in another country overseas. Um,
Hmm.
After college, I applied to dental school several times. Um, and after a few years of not applying, the closest I ever came to being accepted was I was invited for an interview. Um,
Okay.
but after a few years of that and staffing changes at my church, the opportunity for kids ministry director was offered to me. And
Mm.
I remember like having this conversation with God saying, "Hey God, let me know if this is what you want me to do." And
Mm.
finally I realized that he already had. He had slammed this dental door shut and swung
Mm.
this one wide open. Um,
Mm.
and so funnily enough, my start date was March 10th, 2020.
Oh,
So
wow.
that was that was the week the world shut down
Hmm.
because of COVID. And since then, it's just been a whirlwind of ever changing things and an experience that I'm always learning something new. So, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that is quite a story. And yeah, your career path since the start date I'm certain has been interesting.
very interesting.
Yeah, and I know so let's pull on a thread there real quick, Kaylee. So, you know, I like what you said there. It's like, hey, I asked God to let me know, but he was letting me know. So
Yeah.
what are just some tips for people at those inflection points in their life where they're kind of, where you find yourself saying, "Hey, God, let me know what you want me to do." Like, what are some things you'd recommend looking out for?
I think it's important to remember that God has a sense of humor.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
and just pay attention to what's happening in your life and the pay attention to those you respect to tell you
Mhm.
what they see happening in your life. Just pay
Absolutely.
attention.
Yeah, well, we can never pay too much attention. So, yeah, that is spectacular advice there, Kaylee. And I'm curious, so shifting gears, no, you started officially on March 10th, 2020. And that's like, hey, the weekend before that, we were in class, everything was normal. No, we
Yeah.
weren't for a few months. And a lot's changed since then, too.
Oh, yes.
As ministry has evolved at a rapid pace over the last few years, what are some tips you have for engaging just in person and online kidsman experiences?
Um, for in-person experiences, we work as a kids ministry team, and this has been
Hmm.
amazing as we have our own unique gifts and personalities. We're using Orange curriculum, and that
Hmm.
lays out a great strategy for the whole year. And we rely heavily on our amazing volunteers, including students who are as young as fourth grade. As far
Okay.
as online goes, Playlister has been great as an option for our families who are not able to attend for whatever reason over the weekend, or even if they just want to watch more at home about the Bible story that we're doing for that week.
Mhm.
And the partnership that Playlister has with Orange has made this basically seamless, and we're very happy to be using it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, yeah, we appreciate the chance to help at your church. And, you mentioned working as a team in kids ministry. So, what are some values, principles, and just things that you and your team at City Church operate by?
Um, so our church motto is City Church where change happens. And we
Mhm.
believe that this change happens by helping each other take the next step in their relationship with
Mm,
God. And we're constantly
mm,
reevaluating the things that we do to make sure that they're the best way to do exactly what God wants. Um,
mm,
Personally, I tend to struggle with change. I don't know many people who don't. Um, but I've also grown to appreciate how necessary change is for God to allow God to do what he wants to do and move in people's lives.
mm. Absolutely. Well, I like that motto, where change happens. And so, speaking of change, what are just some of your short-term ministry goals and long-term ministry goals?
Well, it's March now, so we're looking forward to Easter, as I'm sure a lot of people are.
Absolutely.
That's coming quickly. But we've also started full steam ahead on our version of VBS. We gave it a new name this year. We're calling
Okay.
it Field Nights.
Mm,
City Church has this phenomenal sports ministry. It's called High Five Sports, and we get to partner with their team to create this outdoor VBS that feels like a typical field day at a school
mm,
meshed with Vacation Bible School.
mm,
And as far as long-term ministry goals, I was trained in such a way that you lead where you get to a point where you won't be missed when you leave. And I
mm,
don't mean that to say that people won't miss me being there, but if I'm not there, there's not a big hole that they're going to feel. So I do try to
mm.
find little ways to replace myself, even if that person isn't doing it on a weekly basis, they know how to do it should the situation arise.
Absolutely. Yeah, could not agree more there because we can sometimes make ourselves irreplaceable and then plans change, things happen, and that is not good for everyone else. So just what are some things you do to make sure that the rest of the team can rise to the occasion when needed?
I think that comes back to communication.
Hmm.
And one of the biggest challenges that I face, like I noted earlier, like I grew up in the church that I serve. I'm one of the youngest full-time staff members where I work.
Hmm.
And some of the staff, volunteers, lay leaders, they've been around since I was a child.
Hmm.
And so working where you grew up and being the youngest comes with its own set of challenges. Um,
Hmm.
but I guess those challenges are best tackled by having conversations and communicating um, when they are needed. Um, yeah.
Absolutely. Could not agree more there, Kaylee, and appreciate you, sharing your story, sharing a lot of advice today. I'm curious, what just other advice do you have for ministry leaders?
Um, well, in preparing for our talk on another challenge that I know kids
Yeah.
ministry leaders all over are facing right now is just anxiety in these young kids.
Mm,
It's like running rampant. So
mhm,
exploring training opportunities for leaders in our ministry and having open communication with parents are two things that we're trying to look forward to do to mitigate that challenge.
yeah. And what are some, things you're working on with parents and, kids to mitigate anxiety challenges?
Well, like a couple of weeks ago, I talked to this mom. Her son, I'll look over and he'll just be in tears
Mm,
And so just having that conversation with that mom, like I found out, well, he is in therapy. He's
mhm,
learning things. This happened the same time last year. If this leader is present,
mm,
take him to that leader and that'll help. They're really close. Um,
mhm.
and just having those communications with parents.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, just like what you said earlier about paying attention, pay attention
Yeah.
to each one individually, and it'll work out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much, Kaylee, for sharing so much. Really appreciate it, and we're rooting for you as you continue making City Church the place where change happens. So,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
absolutely.